It started with words. Not a pitch. Not a play. Not a moment that showed up on the radar gun or the scoreboard or the defensive alignment charts that analysts study late into the night. It started with something Garrett Cole said. And by the time the umpiring crew had made their decision, by the time Aaron Boone had walked out of the dugout with a look that sat somewhere between fury and exhaustion, by the time Dalton Rushing stood in front of a microphone and said the words that made the room go completely still, the game had become something else entirely. It had become a story about what is acceptable and what is not. The Dodgers and Yankees do not play each other the way other teams play each other. There is history in every at-bat. There is weight in every mound visit. The stadiums are different. The coasts are different. The uniforms carry decades of meaning that no single game can fully contain. When Shohei Ohtani steps into the batter's box against a New York rotation, it is not simply a hitter facing a pitcher. It is the sport's most complete player stepping into one of the sport's most charged environments. Every pitch matters more than it should. Every reaction gets studied. Garrett Cole understood all of that when he took the mound. He had been sharp in the early innings. His fastball had its life. His curveball was landing where he wanted it. The Yankee Stadium crowd was loud in the way it only gets when the opponent is someone worth being loud against. Cole was doing his job. The game had a rhythm. Then Ohtani came to the plate. The first two pitches were strikes. Cole was working efficiently, establishing the zone, daring Ohtani to swing at something just off the edge. It was good pitching. It was the kind of sequence that makes broadcasters speak in low, appreciative tones about the craft of what Cole does when he is at his best. The third pitch ran in on Ohtani's hands. Ohtani fouled it back. The count moved to 1-2. What happened next did not show up in the pitch data. Cole said something. Those close enough to hear it, the home plate umpire, the Dodgers catcher, the batters who followed Ohtani in the lineup and would later recount the moment in the dugout, all confirmed that it happened. The exact words have not been printed in full. They likely will not be. But the description that emerged from multiple sources was consistent. It was directed at Ohtani personally. It was not about the at-bat. It was not the standard competitive edge that passes between pitchers and hitters dozens of times a season. It was something else. Something that crossed a line that the game has unwritten rules about, and in this case, written ones too. The home plate umpire reacted immediately. He stepped out from behind the plate. He raised his hand. He said something to Cole that was short and direct. Cole's response, a slight shake of the head, a half-step toward the mound, the body language of a man who believed he had not done anything worth addressing, only made what came next more inevitable. The umpiring crew convened. 30 seconds. Maybe 45. Long enough that the crowd began to sense something serious was unfolding. Long enough that Boone appeared in the dugout doorway, 1 foot on the top step, watching. The crew chief walked toward home plate and delivered the ruling. It was a severe one. Aaron Boone came out of the dugout not as a manager defending his pitcher. He came out as a man processing, in real time, something he had not anticipated when he filled out his lineup card that afternoon. He spoke to the umpire. He spoke briefly to Cole. The conversation with Cole was the shorter of the two. Those watching from the press area described Boone's expression during the exchange with Cole as something close to disbelief. Not the theatrical disbelief of a manager arguing a close call at second base. The quieter, more unsettling disbelief of someone who has just learned that a person he trusted did something he cannot defend. Boone gave the order. Cole was ejected. He walked off the mound without argument. That detail, in its own way, said something. A pitcher who believes he has been wrongly punished argues. A pitcher who knows what he said was. The stadium noise shifted. It became something more complicated than the usual roar or groan. Something uncertain. Dalton Rushing had heard everything. He had been in the on-deck circle when the words were spoken. He had seen Ohtani's reaction, the stillness that Ohtani sometimes retreats into when something lands differently than expected, the particular kind of composure that looks like calm but is actually something else entirely, something much harder to maintain. Rushing did not say anything in that moment. He returned to the dugout. He sat. He waited. But something was working inside him that the game had not finished processing. By the time the final out was recorded, by the time the Dodgers had made their way through the post-game routine of handshakes and equipment removal and the quiet institutional rituals that follow a professional baseball game, whatever Rushing had been holding since the third inning had become too heavy to carry quietly any further. He asked to speak to reporters. That alone was unusual. Rushing is not, by nature, a man who seeks the microphone. He does his work. He goes home. He is the kind of player whose name appears in the box score without generating the accompanying noise that louder personalities manufacture around themselves. So when he sat down and the room realized he had something specific to say, the attention in that press conference room sharpened considerably. He didn't start with Cole. He started with Ohtani. Shohei handled it the way he handles everything, Rushing said. With more class than the situation deserved. A reporter asked him to describe what he had heard from the on-deck circle. Rushing's jaw tightened. I heard enough, he said. Another reporter asked if he could be more specific. I'm going to be as specific as I need to be, he said. What Cole said was directed at Shohei in a way that had nothing to do with baseball. It wasn't competitive. It wasn't the kind of thing that happens between players who are competing hard. It was a cheap shot from a man who was struggling to get him out and decided to use words instead. He paused. His hands were flat on the table in front of him. Still. Deliberate. That is absolutely cowardly. I don't know how else to describe it. There's no version of what happened today that I respect. The room did not make noise. Reporters who have covered baseball for decades later describe the silence as the kind that settles in when someone says exactly what they mean and everyone in the room knows it. I've had enough, Rushing continued. I've had enough of watching opponents take shots at guys who don't respond the way Cole probably wanted Shohei to respond. He was counting on Shohei being too composed to react. And Shohei was. But that doesn't make what he said acceptable. It makes it worse. Ohtani did not address the specific words. He sat at his own section of the media area with the particular stillness that has become familiar to those who cover him closely. He answered questions. He was measured. He was, as Rushing had said, exactly what Cole apparently had not counted on him being. A reporter asked him how he processed what had happened on the field. Ohtani considered the question for a moment longer than usual. There are things that happen in a game that are part of competition, he said. And there are things that happen that are not about the game. I know the difference. He did not elaborate. He did not need to. Another reporter asked if he felt the umpires had made the right call. The umpires did their job, he said. I trust that. Someone asked whether he thought Cole owed him an apology. For the first time in the press conference, something shifted behind Ohtani's eyes. Not anger. Not sadness. Something that looked, in a strange way, almost like clarity. What I think, he said slowly, is that the game responded the way it should. Beyond that, it's not mine to decide. Cole was not made available to the media. The Yankees released a statement that was 3 sentences long and said nothing of substance. Boone, when he arrived at his own press conference, looked like a man who had spent the last 2 hours inside a conversation he had not wanted to have. A reporter asked him directly, did he know what Cole had said before he ordered the ejection? Boone nodded slowly. I was informed, he said. Yes. And your reaction? Boone exhaled. He looked down at the table. He looked back up. My reaction was that we had to do the right thing. That's all I'll say about my reaction. A reporter pressed further, asking whether Cole would face additional consequences beyond the ejection. That's not my decision alone to make, Boone said. There are processes for this. Those processes will be followed. He was asked whether he was surprised by what Cole had said. Boone was quiet for a long moment. The kind of quiet that is not evasion. The kind that is someone being genuinely careful not to say something they cannot take back. "I've managed Garrett for a long time," he finally said. "Tonight was not who I know him to be. I'll leave it at that." It was not a defense. It was not quite a condemnation. It was the statement of a man caught between loyalty and honesty, trying to find the narrowest possible path between them. The room let him have it. There is a version of this story that ends with the ejection. The call is made. The pitcher walks off the mound. The game continues. The box score reflects the pitching change but not what preceded it. By morning, the sequence gets filed into the accumulating archive of baseball incidents that spike briefly and then recede. But Dalton Rushman made sure that version of the story did not get written. He sat down in front of those microphones not because someone asked him to. Not because his agent told him it would be good for his profile. Not because he had a particular gift for the public moment or history of seeking it out. He sat down because he had been standing 40 feet away when it happened. Because he had watched Otani absorb something unfair, bullshit that most people did not maintain. Because he had spent 2 hours carrying a feeling he was no longer willing to carry alone. "Shohei doesn't need me to speak for him," Rushing said near the end of the press conference. "He's more than capable of handling whatever comes at him. He proved that again today." He stopped for a moment. But just because someone is capable of handling something doesn't mean the rest of US should stay silent about it. Some things deserve to be called. He looked directly at what was in front of him. What Cole did today was cowardly. And I'll stand behind that word every time someone is to me. The season is long. Cole will serve whatever suspension he determines is appropriate. He will return to the mound. He will retire hitters. The Yankee rotation will absorb the disruption and continue. Boone will manage. He will make decisions in the moments that matter, the way managers do, trying to balance the needs of 26 individuals against the singular. And Otani will keep playing baseball the way he plays baseball, with a precision and completeness that has never required the attention of anyone else to feel justified. That has never made the children. That unlocks entirely weapons. Rushing said one more thing before he stood up. It was pride, almost a night. I just wanted my record. What happened to me? I wanted my record. I wish that was true. He walked out. The room stayed. He saw his heart. But something else. The most important thing that happens in a baseball game has nothing to do with the score.